Why did Dr. Dre have to turn over all of his information about his income to the court? Let's find out why. So the documents we got from Los Angeles County Superior Court system shows that Dr. Dre is spending almost $400,000 a year on gardening. Gardening. Like plants. Gardening. $33,171. That's just a lot. I mean, I get it. Lots of upkeep, lots of plants, trees. It's a beautiful house. I understand that the upkeep is astonishing, but $400,000 a year. The gardening expense stuck out because as a divorce lawyer that deals with divorce matters on a daily basis, and that's what I do. I've been doing divorce for 15 years. I practice in Florida, not in California. So again, this isn't legal advice. This is looking at the Dr. Dre and Nicole Young divorce, which sometimes people say, oh, well, they're divorced. Yes, the judge did enter a judgment returning them to the status of single. They're divorced. Their divorce is still going on, and it's nowhere near done, unless there's some behind the scenes stuff that's going on. But with the litigation that's going on in their court file, this is a highly contested case. This thing's going to continue to keep going on until they're able to come to an agreement. And one of the primary issues is the prenup. The prenup. Prenups sometimes can be super, super helpful. They can take away so many of the problems that can come up with a divorce. But every once in a while, you'll have a case where the prenup becomes the central focal point. Marital agreement. Look at that wonderful highlighting. So May 96. This is what this is all over. This prenup, whether or not it should stand or not. So I'm not going to go through it in detail. That's for another video. Dr. Dre had to file this month, November 18th, his financial disclosure documents. In Florida, where I practice, we call it a financial affidavit. Very normal. It's a very normal thing to do. So why do you have to turn over this information? Why do you have to file in the court file so everybody can see it? It's public record. You can pull it and it's information, but it's part of the court system. And I know that sometimes people will think, well, isn't this an invasion of privacy? No, this is public record. California, he's having to file these declaration statements showing what his income is, because right now they are fighting aggressively, as you'll see later in this video. We're going to go through some of the different pleadings that we've pulled and go through his declaration that he filed regarding his income. And it also goes a little bit into the assets, but for the most part, this is so both parties can make an informed decision, and also the courts can make a decision as well. For there's millions of dollars of fees being fought over, for lack of a better term, litigated during the course of this case, and we'll be going through some of that a little bit later on. From a divorce lawyer's perspective, the way I look at it is probably a little bit different than sometimes other people, so I thought it would be interesting. Bounce this off a couple people, and they're like, you should probably make a video about this, because my understanding of the principles of disclosure and discovery, while it may be sometimes a little bit boring, but it kind of can explain why he has to say that he spends $33,000 a month in gardening. Seen the landscaping itself, but I'm guessing it's gorgeous. I'm guessing it's probably like that golf grass, that just like, not Bermuda. I don't know. Whatever the golf grass is, like, it's probably just all golf grass and like cool trees. Like, I mean, this better be like bonsai trees everywhere. So $400,000 a year in gardening. And why that sticks out is because that's a lot. That's a lot for gardening expense. And it just really does show what these financial statements can provide as far as an insight of a celebrity like Dr. Dre. And it also shows that, you know, if you go through a divorce yourself, you have to provide financial disclosure. You have to do the same thing that he's having to do. I'm sure he wasn't ecstatic about doing this. I'm sure he wasn't like, I gotta do what? He's a businessman. He gets it. He understands, like, you know, this is part of the process. He understands the legal system, and, you know, he did what he needed to do with filing it, but I'm sure it's just not like great. But that's part of public record, is to make sure that when it's filed and when it's in there, that if somebody's to come back later and say, well, I didn't know what I was agreeing to, or they didn't provide this, or this information, I didn't have enough to make a decision, or, you know, I couldn't prove my case in court, or whatever. Now it's in the court file. So now you have these disclosure documents that you know, and there's some transparency. So transparency is the operative term. Transparency is really, really important for these cases. You have to have some type of transparency, because if you don't have transparency in divorce, how do you make decisions? How do you come to a settlement? Because most cases do settle at some point. Most cases do not go all the way to trial. Most cases are not going to have probably, you know, multiple days, if not, I don't know if there'll be weeks or whatever, but there'll be, you know, probably significant hearings associated with this prenuptial agreement. Most cases do not have to do that. So just because Dr. Dre is a celebrity doesn't mean that he's above the law. And that's what this shows. This shows that he has to provide the information, just like, you know, normal people have to. They have to provide the information. This is a fight. You know, this is litigation at its, I'm not going to say finest, because I can't imagine they're enjoying this. It's hard. It's, you know, I don't think anybody on this case is sitting there going, all right, well, let's do another 100-page affidavit today. It's a lot. It's extraordinarily expensive. You know, their assets are significant, but the attorney's fees on this are going to be, you know, very high. And it's going to make a dent in both of their net worth. And I'm not saying that Ms. Wasser and Ms. Spector do not deserve what they're getting. And there's other attorneys, as one of the opinions says, that Nicole Young's side has 12 attorneys working on the case. I don't think they're all working on it at the same time, not like bump into people, like, you know, no, that's it's not the way it works. But, you know, within a firm, a lot of times you'll have different people working on different parts, and especially in a complex litigation. In some of our different videos, we talked about the Bill Gates divorce and Kim Kardashian's divorce, and we've talked about Dr. Dre's in a previous video before, but not to this extent, because some of this wasn't out there at this point, because he just filed this declaration, and some of this information and some of the litigation is starting to really heat up. Some of it's really starting to go, and I don't think it's necessarily getting any closer to a resolution, but it definitely is progressing in a way that they're going to have to really try to figure out which direction they're going to go with this, because they're going to end up spending, you know, probably well over $10 million on fees. And I don't even know if they already have. I just know from the numbers that I'm seeing in here, it's significant. The fees are, you know, as I said, well deserved by the attorneys, and maybe some people will disagree with that, but they also, the people that are disagreeing with it don't understand what these attorneys are having to do. And this isn't like a wah, 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 you know, cry for me, cry for, you know, Laura Wasser's office or Spector's office or anything. No, it's not, you know, feel bad for them necessarily. It's just, it's a lot of work. They're earning it. And their rates are somewhere between $400 to, I think, $1,100 an hour, stated in the court file. They're earning that money. You know, their names are showing up in a lot of these celebrity cases, so they're entitled to what they are billing for. It's just a lot. You know, it's a lot, and it's going to continue, especially if you have a long, drawn-out trial on a prenup. And what we're going to get into a little bit just, again, shows, and with some of these celebrity videos, what I'm trying to do is, again, the numbers are, some of them are just, you know, blow your mind. because most people don't live in that type of, spending $400,000 a year on gardening. It's hard to relate. But again, they're having to do a lot of very similar things and having a lot of the same feelings that just normal Bob and Julie down the street that are going through in their divorce. So divorce is a very humanizing process, even for people that, would consider to be untouchable and superhuman and super celebrities, like some of the videos that we've gone through, Bill Gates and Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. We did a video about that. We'll link to that for this one. For this case, it is, truly showing, the lengths of what can happen in divorce litigation, and they seem like they're staying pretty firm to their position. So the first thing I'm going to jump into is Dr. Dre's income and expense declaration. So that's basically like his, for lack of a better term, because that's what we call here in Florida, his financial affidavit. So it's saying, if you want to call it a financial statement, whatever you want to call it, it's basically, here's my income and here's my expenses. So here it is. This is the income and expense declaration for Dr. Dre, which you can see right here. Wonderful highlight. Great job by me. Excellent. 11/18/2021, so November 18th, 2021, it was filed in Los Angeles County. As you can see right here, petitioner is Nicole Young, and then Andre Young. I'm going to call him Dr. Dre. We're not close or anything, so apologize if that offends him that I call him Dr. Dre, but that's how I know. The income and expense declaration in their case is a way for them to state, obviously, what their income and expenses are. But it gives us a little bit of insight into additional information about, right here, obviously a little bit of what he does. He's a music producer, composer, entertainer. I think we need that. As you can see right here, Andre Young, that's apparently his signature, signed on November 18, 2021. So this was obviously very recent. And we get to the next page. That's where it gets a little bit more interesting, showing salary and wages of $446 a month. Okay. But then dividends interest of $84,730 per month. And then an additional other of $120,776, totaling $228,277 from his business interests. And as it says here, he's owner, sole proprietor, and business partner. And then they attach some things that we'll talk about a little bit later, kind of going into the various business interests that Dr. Dre has and that he's involved in. The one that kind of stuck out to me was this one: additional income in 2021, realized gain of $73 million for the sale of his Apple stock. So when I'm a Florida divorce lawyer, not a California divorce lawyer. Obviously, this isn't legal advice. I don't represent either one of these parties. This is how I would analyze a case. I've looked at thousands of financial affidavits over the years in divorce cases. And when I sit here and look at it, I try to look for things that stick out to me. When I looked at this, and this is my first time going through it in depth, because as I was flipping through it, I saw $33,000 a month in gardening expenses. And I said, this is interesting. This has got to be a little bit interesting in here. So this sale of the Apple stock realized gain, obviously he sold his Apple stock and made $73 million on it in 2021. So, the courts are looking for things that are, different from years past, because they're looking, as you can see over here, average monthly amount. What is his average monthly amount of income? So they know that, no matter what, he's thinking that he can make $225,000 a month. But this one-time sale of Apple stock, it's not like you're going to be selling Apple stock every year. Usually, I don't know how much Apple stock he has, but usually these one-time things are, again, it says right here, I received one-time money, lottery winnings, inheritance, etc., and not trying to factor it into the average monthly income, because big part of this case is litigation and litigation expenses and attorney's fees. So the support issue is an issue, and the prenuptial agreement, and whether or not Nicole Young is trying to set it aside, and obviously Dr. Dre is trying to say that, hey, that prenup it needs to stay in place. So that's their positions, and they're going to be going through and continuing to go through a lot of litigation to do that. So that's why his income and revenue streams are very important. And she doesn't work, so therefore they're looking at his income and to see whether or not he should be able to pay support and pay for attorney's fees in the case. We're looking here at assets. Again, this is an estimated fair market value, assets of cash, checking accounts, deposit accounts, 182 million, stock, bonds, and other assets that could easily sell, 6.2 million, and then all other property, real property and personal property, 269 million. So that is his assets, which obviously, we're not talking about 182,000, we're talking about 182 million. So these, obviously he has substantial assets, with the 182 million there, the 6.2 million here, and then the 269 million here, substantial assets. So the court's got to look at that and see, okay, he's at least making 228,000 a month, plus he got a large gain from the Apple stock in 2021 of 73 million. Plus he's also got these assets that we're talking about right here. So that makes it a little bit easier for a judge to, when they look at it, go, if this was like $5, $0 and $190, that's a different story. But when we're talking about these numbers that are, in the area of $500 million, they're something the court's got to look at and see. And as you'll see throughout this and the expenses, and then in additional videos that we're doing on this about the litigation that's been going on, this is something the court has to look into. It has to look into his assets and financial situation. So part of one of the big fights in this case is attorney's fees. And I'm an attorney, so of course, I'm sure I'll get at least a couple of comments on here like, you guys charge too much or whatever. But I can assure you that these attorneys are working around the clock on this case and doing a lot, and they're earning every penny of this, down to the cent, as you can see, 18 cents. So to date, he's paid his attorney for fees and costs $2.2 million through October 31st, 2021, and then still owe about 62,000 plus work in progress. Attorney's rates $400 to $950 an hour. So this is, again, just a disclosure about income, expenses, assets, kind of a rough estimate on assets. Like if we go back up to this, these are estimated. A lot of these are book values, estimated values, just like they say right here. So the court wants to get kind of a little bit more information about it. The financial affidavit in Florida, which is the jurisdiction I practice in, it's a little bit more detailed in the asset provision, but this is, again, this gives you what you need to know. I mean, you can see these three lines. You can say, all right, 182 million, 6.2 million, 269 million. Again, it's not hurting for money. And then we're going to go to, this is how it comes to his dividend and interest income for the year. And this is all public record. So, this was obtained through the court records. This is what he had to file in his divorce proceeding. So part of why we do these videos is for people to understand, because people going through divorce have to file financial affidavits, and they have to file it, depending on your jurisdiction. Again, this is, I'm a Florida divorce lawyer, so California clearly, is requiring some of these declarations, and other states are going to be different. Other countries' laws are going to be different on it, but the goal is to have some type of transparency so they know what's going on. So they know, okay, all right, so the total amounts for year end of 2020, about $1 million for the dividends and interest. So the monthly average, they broke it out to about 84,000. And a lot of that had to do with Apple and National Financial Services Note 2. So, as you can see, that's a little bit of breakdown of that line item on it. And then income from various LLCs, limited partnerships, 128,000 a month, about 1.5 million in 2020. So, and this is all information based upon his 2022 2020 tax return. The income from self-employment, Dr. Dre, he's making about, so he's showing a loss here. And again, I haven't gone through this, so this is first time looking at this schedule right here. So he's showing he made, the partnership income $358,000 a month, 2020. So about 4.3 million in 2020. But then there was a large loss for this one right here, ARY Inc. About a $1.5 million loss. So that kind of balanced that part of it out. So now we get to the expenses. And, when I pulled this, and the one that I saw first, I don't know why it just stuck out to me. Probably because I've seen, like I said, thousands of financial affidavits and these declarations over the years. And $33,000 a month in gardening is a lot. And I get it. The house is gorgeous. It is, I'm sure, better be immaculately maintained for almost $400,000. I just highlighted both of them now, whatever. Okay, gardening. Oh my gosh, repairs. I can't even use little highlighting features on Adobe. All right, so gardening, $33,171. That's just a lot. I mean, I get it. Lots of upkeep, lots of plants, trees. It's California. It's over. An area. I'm guessing maybe there's. I don't know. I don't know. That just to me it just stuck out. And I've definitely seen some large, lawn maintenance amounts in various cases that I've had. But again, we pay our guy like $100, and he can trim some palm trees and do the grass and stuff like that. But I do not have a probably $70 million palatial estate either. So I guess that's it's probably the reason why he's paying $400,000 a year for gardening. It just seems like a lot. It just seems like, like when you're going through and you're like balancing your checkbook in each year, and you're like, what can I cut down on? I don't know. That one to me stands out. Like, I can cut down on gardening. The maintenance and repairs of almost, $750,000 a year. It's a very large property. Off the top of my head, I think Googled it. And it was, 29,000 square feet, purchased for 50 million, I think, and probably worth, I'm guessing, I don't even know in today's market, 70 million, 60 million, whatever. So you're going to have, with that, you're going to have a lot of, obviously, taxes. As you can see, almost $750,000 in taxes per year. And then you're going to have these maintenance and repairs of almost $750,000. Household salaries, to run the household. So don't know what that entails specifically, but from other high asset, high income cases where you're employing staff to come in and maintain the house, obviously, maids, and whatever else I was going to say grounds crew, but I mean, I think that would be under guarding. I don't know. That's, almost $1 million in salaries to run the house. So pool maintenance, $2,000 a month. Actually, that was not, I'm sure it's a huge pool. So that, the gym, $6,000 a month to maintain. And then security, only $289 a month for security. That's pretty good. Judging from, just again, the expenses associated with the rest of this residence. So this is his, I don't know how that's pronounced, but I'm going to call it CHALON Road. So that's what it is. So home, about $3.2 million a year in just expenses, $266,000 a month. And then they go into healthcare costs, groceries, about $20,000 a month for groceries. And that includes, as you can see here, groceries, household supplies, eating out. It's about $250,000 a year in groceries, household supplies, eating out. It is what it is. Utilities, $400,000, includes cable. That's funny. $400,000.
I would hope that $400,000 included cable. Because if it didn't include cable, I mean, I don't know, just might need to be looking for a different utility provider. So $400,000 a year in utilities. Cellular, 8,680 a month. I mean, it's pretty fair. Telephone. So I guess there's some landlines over it at the residence, laundry, dry cleaning. And again, this is what I do for a living. I like look at these things. I look at these financial affidavits, and this isn't all that I do. I do divorce law, so a lot of child custody, but some of it is related to finances, and so we see a lot of financial affidavits. And I've seen, like I said, about thousands and thousands of these over the years. So you get kind of an idea of like what things look, and just because somebody's in a different income bracket, just the expenses usually just tick up with what with what with what they're making. So you don't want it to go so far that you're not, if you're making as much as Dr. Dre has made, the fact that he's maintained the assets that he's had and kept the accounts and real estate and things that he has, because you wouldn't want to have the career that he's had and then be left with like zero. So sometimes people spend so far beyond their means that they deplete everything. And then sometimes you make enough that you can spend $20,000 a month in clothing. So close to about $250,000 a year in clothing. 20,000 a month. Travel. Whew. So about 2.3 million in travel. So, and that would be personal travel, because I mean, there's probably business related expenses because of all the different, those losses on some of those different things in the touring and Dr. Dre. I don't know how they calculate that. I'm guessing multiple CPA firms, or at least one. Somebody was, helped produce this, and they use it just based off of the 2020 tax return. But I'm sure there's been some accountants that have been looking at this. But 2.3 million in what I would guess would be personal travel rather than business travel. So about $200,000 a month in travel, because the court's trying to look to see, okay, what is his expenses versus his income, to try to determine, what he has in order to be able to pay for support. So he's, basically saying he's got about 1.4 million in expenses per month. 1.4 million per month, 17.3 per year. So 1.4 million per month. But if you look back up to, the income, he's stating that, he has, and I like how Florida does this. No offense to California. I hope none taken California, but Florida like adds this stuff up and just makes it for people like me that aren't like great at math. You just put like the 84,000 plus the 120 plus income from here. You break it down, and then you put it at the end after the expenses, and then you show what the deficit is. Like this would be a pretty large deficit based upon these numbers. And then the Apple stock, clearly he has the ability to maintain his expenses. So in going back to the expense portion, so the 1.4 million, almost 1.5 million per month in expenses, clearly, the income that's coming in per month is not enough to pay that, but that one-time payment of the Apple stock, obviously that puts enough in there, and then he can maintain assets out of but they list the other, so gifts include support for minor children, 7.8 million, about $650,000 a month in gifts. I don't know for what. Obviously, if I was the attorney in the case in a deposition. That would be something that we'd be asking about if it was necessary, because sometimes you get into certain cases where it just doesn't, some of these things just don't matter because there's just, enough money to go around if you're having to pay for support or fees or whatever. So it's not an issue of whether he has the ability to pay. And, in a future discussion we're going to have about the fees requests and some of the things that have been filed in the case, you'll see in there that the court needs to obviously first see, does he have the ability to pay for the fees? And it's clear, he has the resources, the income resources, and Nicole does not have an income. So, he has the income coming in, the money is continuing to replenish, plus he has the assets at his disposal, which are, significantly more than the assets that she has at her disposal. So that's what the court's looking at when they're looking at these fee requests and support requests. So, on this page, auto, 560 in fuel. I mean, so that's pretty reasonable. Yeah, I'm sure he's got a couple cars, they're owned. Looks like they're owned outright because there's no car payments or anything like that or anything leased. So that's good. That's good. I'm sure Dave Ramsey would be very happy about that he's not accruing debt on it. So insurance, personal articles, floater, 121,000 a year, medical insurance, 61,000, charities, 177,000 a year in charitable donations. So we go into bank and investment fees, almost $500,000 in bank and investment fees. It's a high number, but again, he's got a high net worth. So clearly he knows what he's doing with that and why he's paying almost $500,000 to the banks for investment fees. I'm sure there's reasons that his accountants have come up with that. Dues and subscriptions of $10,000. I mean, that can be a whole bunch of different things. Moving storage, moving things around, $70,000 a year. Pet expenses, $105,000 a year in pet expenses. I'm sure, with his income and assets, he's got some pets, and I'm sure they live a nice lifestyle. Clearly, they're getting about $8,800 a month to live. Personal miscellaneous of 51. I mean, judges love this stuff when it's like miscellaneous $600,000 a year. It's like, really? Like, I'm gonna break that down a little bit more. But again, we're not, and I can't speak for the judge because I'm not the judge, but if I'm the judge, I'm like, again, he's got the money here. We're not trying to figure out, okay, is this going to be able to go to Chili's and, get some baby back ribs or something like that. No, he's going to be fine. It's just, in most divorces, you want to try to be as detailed as you can in some of the stuff, and like, $600,000. I don't know. Personal miscellaneous, that sounds good. Adult children expenses, $750,000. Legal, excluding the family law, because again, if you put the family law, in this case, as we saw above, about 2.2 million, you extrapolate that over a 12-month period, these expenses would obviously go up higher. So these are legal expenses, not the divorce case. Taking his deposition, I'm probably just having him, walk me through, and which I'm not taking his deposition. But if I was, I would be saying, all right, what does that include? Because it's a large item, and it's something that, anything that's, pops up as an attorney, when you're going through it, sometimes you don't have a lot of time, and you get, people will revise these things like right before the deposition, right before trial, and before the hearing. So you're getting it, and you're just like flipping through it as you're like walking into court and trying to do it. And it's usually a lot of things that kind of, throw up little, red flags to you. You want to get a little bit more information about and ask some questions. Again, this was the income and expense declaration for Dr. Dre, filed November 18th, 2021. And we're going to continue tracking this case and continue, seeing what else is going on. And because it's obviously a case of interest, he's clearly a public figure, and he's somebody that's, out there, in the public, and it's a very highly contested divorce, and something that, myself, as a divorce lawyer, it interests me. And so hopefully this has been interesting for you as well.
That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Hang in there.